systems, I mean, three stages of development. And that's the agricultural phase, and then you have the industrialization phase, and you have the post-industrial sector. Now, we haven't even solved the agricultural phase. We're still in hoes and cutlasses in 2014, 160 million plus of us. Industrialization, we've hardly touched. These two sectors of an economy, they provide employment in the millions, and they provide money for a nation, revenue in the billions. But our education sector, so far as I know, produces every manner of profession for the post-industrial sector. Teachers, doctors, nurses, architects, bankers, journalists, everybody. None of them makes money. They all service wealth. They service wealth. They don't create wealth. But this is where the education sector is gravitating towards. People who can talk, like myself. I'm a classic example of this. I can talk till tomorrow, but I can't make a pen. We need people who can make pens, who can make things. But we're producing everybody. This was reflected in the immigration exercise, where some people died. Everybody there, more than 500,000 people in 6-7 stadiums around the country, they were all practically and productively, and I stress this, useless to Nigeria. They were all knowledge-based people. There is nothing they can do. They were looking for jobs in immigration. Immigration does not make money for a nation. It consumes money. Same as the health sector. The health sector consumes money. Who is making the money? We have very few people in the industrial sector, which we have few industries. We have no iron and steel industry running at the moment. We tried creating 5 of them in the 70s. Ajakutalaja, Oshogbo, Jos, if I remember. None of them is functional at the moment, but we want to industrialize. How is that? We hardly have agriculture going on. Credit to the agriculture minister at the moment, he's trying, but we need to see achievements. We went down Operation Feed the Nation, Green Revolution in the 70s and 80s. We've got nothing to show for it. This is where the education sector should target. This is where I agree with Professor Otega. This should be reflected in our curriculum, right from crèche rather. But we are producing talkers and thinkers. I call them Tatans, if you don't mind. Talkers and Thinkers Association of Nigeria. We can talk and think. We've been talking and thinking for half a century. It gets us nowhere. You move a nation with the makers, not the talkers. We're producing talkers, not makers. This is why we can't not get the educational system to move the nation.
All right. Let me just come in quickly here. We also have in the studio right now Dr. Henrietta Onwuguze. She's a lecturer with the Lagos Business School. She's just joined us. Thank you so much for joining us in this discussion. We've been talking about the education sector 54 years after independence. Obviously, there's a massive, that's the word, disconnect between education, which is the breeding ground for whatever we want to achieve in the coming years, in our economy, in our life as a nation. How do we address that disconnect between what we are raising and what our needs are really currently? Let me direct that question to Dr. Henrietta.
Well, I listened with a lot of interest to what he was saying, and I think he's spot on. But the good news is that we have the answer. The reason why our educational sector is skewed the way it is to producing job seekers rather than job creators is because we've adopted it's the Western model. It's a global problem. It's not just a Nigerian problem, because all over the world, business schools, for example, which is what I'm very familiar with, boast about how quickly their graduates get jobs and the sort of jobs they get. So certain business schools are known to be experts at producing financial directs, financial gurus. Others are known for producing analysts or marketers. And in spite of the fact that unemployment is a global problem that's growing, no one's thinking of changing this orientation to producing job creators. And the interesting thing, I said the good news, is that we have the answer. My PhD research focused on looking at traditional entrepreneurs. In other words, entrepreneurs who don't have formal education or have little or no formal education, but are very rich in indigenous knowledge. And my findings were very interesting. The apprenticeship method, where people right from childhood learn the skills with which they took care of their families as adults, is one that is failure-proof. Everybody succeeds. And that's because they spent at least 6 years learning the trade with which they become self-sufficient adults, independent adults. Now, I think that the current educational system has a lot they can learn from them. Because when someone is going through apprenticeship, they don't only learn about the skills, they learn about morals, values. It was a comprehensive system which was truncated by colonialism, which made us believe that whatever is indigenous is primitive, and so we should embrace what is Western. And so that way of learning was, well, to a large extent stopped, and we embraced the Western form of education, which of course has many good things in it, but it's not as comprehensive as the previous form of education. And so you have many people, I mean, statistics all over the world tell you that out of every 80% at least, 75 to 80% of all entrepreneurs fail in the first 3 years. And of the 20% that succeed, another 80% will fail in the next 3 years. And that's because they're not prepared for entrepreneurship. Whereas in the traditional system, in the rural areas, the so-called illiterates, as we consider them, never fail. Yes, they remain small, okay, and I believe that if that system had been allowed to evolve, they would have also learned how to become bigger enterprises, okay, but because it was truncated and left to the older people, it has remained in a very stunted form. So the point here is there's a lot we can learn, we can transfer in order to actually solve this problem, because we can continue talking about the failure of the educational system from now till thy kingdom come without actually without actually getting the results we want. The key thing now is to see how we can begin to address our needs. Fortunately, the Nigerian University Council has already made a policy, I think it's about for 3 years now, that makes it compulsory for every student, whether you're studying engineering or medicine or whatever it is, to study entrepreneurship. And that's going from, I think, the secondary school levels, if I'm not mistaken, hopefully the primary school level. So if every student has, if all schools incorporate entrepreneurship into the curriculum, this might stem the tide.
Let's take a few steps back.
Okay.
What you've just shared now, how do we begin to bring that as a policy statement that it's not something you do when you get to university, inculcating from primary school to open your mind to the fact there are kids these days who are going online and they're thinking, actually, I could set up this kind of thing and we'll raise money for this and raise money for that.
Yeah.
If their mind is open to finding fund, whether it is going to be used to support good causes or it's going to be used for entrepreneurial business venture, then one way or the other, we've got to open the brains of the kids from a certain age. Where do we start and how do we do it?
Absolutely. The truth is we need to retrain teachers, because teachers are entrenched in the traditional way of teaching and focused on just teaching in silos. So I teach mathematics, or I teach finance, or I teach HR. And so it starts with the orientation of the teachers. And I guess, well, as you rightly said, we have to start from somewhere. Well, LBS has an entrepreneurship development center that's quite well renowned. We work with international organizations, and other schools from other parts of Africa have come to learn what we do there. And besides Entrepreneurship Development Center, in the Lagos Business School itself, we have a very strong entrepreneurial component in what we teach. Indeed, the MBAs are made to actually start ventures before they leave. And not just start a business venture, but start a venture that has a positive social impact. So that they learn from that point that making money is very compatible with having a positive social impact.
Okay. Now, what was going through my mind as Henrietta was talking now was the fact that I remember when I was in secondary school, my mathematics was appalling. But I had this teacher, I will never ever forget his name. I've never met him after I left secondary school. His name is Mr. Badamosi, wherever he is now, God bless his soul. He taught me mathematics in a different way, and I scored an A for the first time in my life in mathematics. How do we begin to train teachers to understand how to teach and impact knowledge that will change the life of our children? Because everybody seems to talk about teachers. We talk about education is all about teachers.
Well, see, what you highlighted is a teacher who had a heart for you as a student. They Ms. Agbada